sexy Tengen cosplay. Somebody had to do it. It's Romania Black, and this is the most makeup I have ever had on my face, and probably the most I will ever have on my face. But yeah, I decided that for episode 8, 8's my lucky number. We've been off a week from Jujutsu Kaisen, and I'm like, I want to try and do a Tengen cosplay. And so I thought I would do like a geisha, kind of just the face being white, and then I went to go get my white makeup, and I had like this much left of it, so I was like, well, we'll make it white enough. And then I tried to do the eyes. Y'all are lucky that I'm painting for the screen. Because if you saw this monstrosity up close, it is terrifying. It's so caked on. It's insane. But yeah, so we're just rolling with Tengen today. So this is my sexy Tengen cosplay as an immortal would. Hey, this is what Tengen would have been if they had absorbed Rico. We'll just say that. So, but yeah, so we're on episode 8. It's felt like, I feel like Rose from Titanic. It's been 84 years waiting for this episode to come out. I am so excited, y'all. And we have some comments to dive into before we even get started. So let's not waste any time. Let's just dive right into them, shall we? So we're going to start out with Be Happy said on the Discord, when I said the awakened are potential players, this might be inaccurate because the awakened are players. It's the Jujutsu sorcerers that already existed before Kinjaku's awakening that are potential. So yeah. So those that are awakened, they are players. Those that are just Jujutsu sorcerers, until they enter the barrier, until they enter the game, they are not. So thus Kurara is staying outside the barrier, so she cannot be a player. This will come into play with a comment down below tied to episode 7, which I'm going to get to real quick, which is Jake Collins's, saying that something to keep in mind regarding the current plan. Just because someone is a sorcerer does not make them a player. You seem concerned that Megumi would force a non-sorcerer into the game to save his sister, and surprised that Yuji did not object to the idea. But Megumi himself did not become a player until he touched the barrier. So as long as at least one sorcerer stays in the reserves and does not become a player by approaching the colony, they could get Sumiki out without dragging someone in against their will. Like Kurara or Maki could take Sumiki's place and are already helping out while not entering the colonies. Okay, sure. We'll just go with that for now. Theoretically, that all sounds like it should work, right? As far as Gintoki5535 says, Megumi is okay, look, this comment took me out. I have a dark sense of humor. This comment took me out. They were like, Megumi is a true Zenin clan head because the first thing he does after becoming the head is to beat a woman. And now, as of episode 7, multiple. What? That's so dark and twisted and not right, but damn it. Valhalla Combi for episode 6 says, we've only seen cursed energy become unavailable when the prison realm captured Gojo. Angel can cancel cursed techniques, but not cursed energy. The technicality point is spot on. Yuta doesn't bother to train his physical body because his cursed energy reinforcement is so powerful due to having the highest cursed energy reserves in the series thus far. The whole point of Maki and Toji being heavenly restricted is that they lose all versatility by having no cursed energy. They are still blessed to have 0 cursed energy in their versions and hence having the superhuman bodies, but what OG Zenin was still said holds true. Quote, normal sorcerers can use cursed energy to reinforce their bodies anyway. Most will still lose in a physical battle with Maki and Toji because they have 0 cursed energy, heavenly restrictions, but not the top tiers. Yuta, Gojo, Sukuna seem to have already matched Toji in physical stats through cursed energy reinforcement alone, but then they have their techniques and everything else they can do with the cursed energy. So basically, I was worried about Yuta. And Valhalla was like, hold on, this is going to be harder than just that, because even though Yuta might not be physically strong, they have their cursed energy, their techniques, etc. So it's going to be, we can't just be all doom and gloom yet. It'll be all right. So thank you, Valhalla, for assuaging my fears. Soul Holders said, this reminds me of a fan art I saw back when Kinjaku is overseeing a production line of Kogani, picks up one with the heart on its tail and says, I know who to assign this one to. Oh, that's so freaking cute. Yes. Yes, Kogani with the heart tail being assigned to Yuji, stop it. Stop it right now. That's so much. Alexander Q says, the fight between Yuji and Hikari, on the other hand, was so sad. I just wanted to hug Yuji. The fact that he still feels like a cog in the machine is so sad because he has so much value and isn't just a thing more. And yet, I can't help thinking how this, to a degree, is Nanami's own ideology that Yuji is adopting now. Nanami hated Jujutsu Society. He quit it for a little while there, and while I totally believe that he was a sorcerer because he wanted to help others and that was a factor, I also think Nanami just thought that things would go on after his own death because that's what he saw over and over again in Jujutsu Society, with Habara, with Gojo and Geto, and countless others, I'm sure. And also, this is what shows Yuji in his final moments because that they're there to continue work, and once your time comes, you pass the mantle to the next one, and the machine goes on without care of who the cog is making it work. So as of right now, Yuji does not believe in the Chosen One narrative. He does not believe that he is anything more than a cog in the system, a cog in the machine. We'll see if that holds true to the end. But I do find it interesting, the whole idea of Nanami's philosophy kind of getting thrown in there. I thought that was really interesting. These wig hair strays are going to drive me crazy. Ooh, ooh. Alex Johnson says for episode 7, I believe the reason Kinjaku let all those people out of the barrier was because he had no other choice due to the inherent restrictions that exist in Jujutsu. With any great power, there's responsibility. There are always some limits to how they can be used. Since Kinjaku created a barrier that covers such a large space, a 5 to 6 kilometer radius, it would be completely unreasonable for the thousands of people caught up to just be trapped when they didn't even agree to enter in the first place. Kinjaku, quote, I went through great pains to create this barrier, so I can't impose restrictions that are too unreasonable. Those of you who are inside from the start have the right to leave just once. I wanted to repeat that because I feel like it's going to come back in place later on. Tamia, with episode 7, says, I would just like to add about the translation. You're in the space between dreams and reality. It's a curse. The original word of the curse is, but there are 2 readings for Norori and Majinai. Exactly the same writing, but different pronunciation. Curse is used in this series is the first one, but in this scene, it's the latter one, which generally means using the power of gods or other mystical beings to remove or cause disasters. However, it's used mostly in a positive term nowadays, something like a good fortune spell. Again, the idea that Kinjaku is just out here, like, doing decent things when he's done all of these other things is crazy to me. So I'm like, what? But just adding layers to our villains, right? Gege's good at it. And then Anime Annie has a pretty long comment. They had a really long comment, but as per usual, they had lots of fun, insightful things to say. And I have a thing from the Discord to show, I think, with part of the comment. But for episode 7, they said, hats off to Sakurai for changing his intonation when voicing Kinjaku. Now the Kinjaku no longer needs to act and play as Geto. Yes, you could notice that in the episode. That's why at first I didn't recognize it was him. And I was like, oh, it kind of terrifies me that Sasaki had to trust Kinjaku to leave the Sendai colony. But at the same time, I do trust that what Kinjaku said was true because it seemed like the creation of the barriers for the colonies works like a pact. My fear, though, is in him saying they can leave just once. But is there anything stopping people from going back inside and just being stuck there? He had to just let you out once, and then you're on your own. But he made sure to tell her that, so maybe he had to tell all of them that. But yeah, that's my thing. I said in the episode, I was like, they're going to go back. Something's going to happen, and I don't like where it's headed. So, I don't know. Anime Annie says, Fushiguro's sword, I think he could have gotten it from within the shadows. If you remember when he and Maki were fighting Hanami in season 1, he pulled out stored weapons to switch it out with Maki. Yes, that was pointed out, and then someone pointed out too that he's used that sword against the resurrected Toji back in season 2. So it's the same one. And then I love this side of the comment. I love this. Is it wrong of me to love seeing this morally gray side of Fushiguro? The show is not being subtle. 2 paths laid out in front of Fushiguro, just like he has the choice to kill or not to kill. And once again, making us see Itadori and Fushiguro on different paths. They've even got their chosen guides in opposing colors. Amai in the green, like the green path, and Remy in magenta, similar to the red path. I feel like one of them is telling the truth, but I'm unsure which to trust. The body language of Amai when he greeted Itadori feels a bit off, while Remy, at face value, seems untrustworthy with how she keeps switching up how she acts and speaks towards Fushiguro and seems more sly. Also, it's a decent enough distance between Ikebukuro and Shinjuku. It's around 3 miles. All the more so as I doubt public transport is running in the colony. Yeah, it's like, it's either one of two ways. Either Amai is meant to seem like the green flag and we're all supposed to believe he's the obvious choice to be the right one telling the truth, and he's lying and is actually not. Or Remy seems like she's obviously lying, but then it turns out she's telling the truth. Or they're both lying. Surprise! And they're both lying, and that's the trick of the Culling game. So, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I liked that. We've heard, okay, so I made a list of everybody that was, MIA at this point in the series, and Anime Annie added on to that saying, we have heard or seen nothing from Inumaki since the glimpse of him we got at the end of season 2. With the assistant managers, Ichiji is currently with Airi. We saw that in the one flashback. Nita, the blonde assistant manager who's with Nobara in Shibuya, whose name I forget all the time. I forget about Nita's name constantly. We haven't seen or heard anything about them. It's the same with her brother Arata, the one who was dressed like a butler that arrived in Shibuya with Todo. We also don't know anyone from Geto's old group if they survived Shibuya, and there's been no mention of what Uraume is up to. Yeah, Uraume is like just making up soup. Making soup, butter and toast. It's like a Dragon Ball Z abridged with Mr. Popo. Butter and toast. That's all Uraume is doing. So then they said, I thought of several. Now, Anime Annie is also anime only, in case if you're wondering. I've thought of several possibilities of why Amai is in the colony. Itadori's school was in Sendai, and it was the Sendai colony that Iguchi and Sasaki were given the choice to leave. The colony that Itadori and Amai, as well as Fushiguro and Remy, are at is Colony 1 in Tokyo. So, the first possibility is that Amai was in Tokyo at the time when the barriers were created and the colonies went up, and chose to remain rather than leave. The second possibility is Amai is somehow a player and wasn't given the chance to leave. That's my guess. My guess is that Kinjaku specifically chose Amai to be a player and they can't leave. And the third is that they left by choice when Sasaki and Iguchi left, but then chose to come to Tokyo for whatever reason. Yeah. Also, there's new voice actors this episode. Amai is voiced by Soma Saito, and I'm like, oh, here's the thing. And this is what makes it even more complicated. Soma Saito has voiced, the range goes from Yamaguchi in Haikyuu to Moriarty and Moriarty the Patriot. So you've got a voice actor that plays either the most cinnamon roll, buttery bean, or the villain. So it's like, what's it gonna be? Maybe both. Who knows? I'm like, what? That's not even fair. Also Hanyu, aka Kim Possible, is voiced by Takeuchi Junko, who is the seiyuu for Naruto. Oh, that's cool. That's kind of cool to get the Naruto's voice actress in here as a character. Fun times. The one thing I wanted to show you all from the Discord before we start is this screenshot, because we've been talking in the Discord about how basically Yuji and Megumi are like the new Geto and Gojo, and they're even doing the same poses. It's amazing. So yeah, I have some tea down here, but it is like, the glass is too hot. I was going to start this out having Tengen and being like this in my tea glass, but it's literally too hot for me to touch right now. It got too warmed up, so I'm gonna have to let it cool down for the moment, which is fine. But I'm gonna get a different drink, and then yeah, thank you all for letting me talk about the comments. I know it's been almost 15 minutes, but I had a lot to go through these last 2 weeks. So with that being said, let's not waste any more time. I went to go start the episode, and it's straight to the OP with it. Okay. So we're starting right. We're going to skip the OP. We're starting at a minute and 28 seconds. Holy cow. You know it's a good episode when you're going straight through the OP. So we're going to start episode 8 of Jujutsu Kaisen season 3. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's get it started. And thus Gege looked down upon the fandom and said, "Oh, I have taken the Nanami away, but do not worry, dear fandom. I shall replenish your lack of Nanami with a doll, dark, handsome, and even more riddled with anxiety. Nanami. So Higuruma. Okay. All right, Higuruma. Y'all will not be surprised to know that I am automatically like, yep. Sign me up for the next trial. I'm on board. I am so on board with Higuruma already. I just want to call him Hiromi, but Higuruma, I'm so on board. I forget. Gege is in his cinematic era. Gege is just like, manga? Who's making manga? I'm making cinema. I'm making art. Because that's literally what this episode was. The entire setup, everything, the reveal that Kinjaku is maybe up to something different than what ye olde Tengen has predicted. There's a lot at play in this episode. I have questions about Hiromi. I have many questions about Hiromi. Specifically, how the hell did he learn a domain expansion in less than 2 weeks? Some people just got it. Some people are just born with it. Maybe he's born with it. Maybe it's trauma. But I do want to talk about this episode and treat Higuruma very seriously because his character is fascinating. I'm just very, very fangirling over the fact that I was like, where is this Nanami-sized hole in my JJK life going to get filled with? And Gege's like, don't worry, here is your answer. It's like the adult of all adults if they were going through a quarter-life crisis and PTSD and trauma and like was the bad ending for Nanami. But we're gonna talk about it. There's a lot to break down. I don't want to say bad ending for Nanami because Nanami and Higuruma are not the same people. They just share similar quirks. And basically, this is Gege's caricature of what someone in their 30s is like. At first it's Nanami and now it's Higuruma. Okay. I want to dive into this episode because there's also a hell of a lot of imagery that we need to go through and break down. So here in 3, 2, 1... there was no time. This episode, I honestly loved this episode because it was set up for Higuruma's character, and it was set up of all these questions about the culling game that I'm like, that does bring to light some interesting points. I don't know if I like that. That seems to complicate things. What are we doing? Uh-oh. And so we're going to talk about that specifically, but to the point here, we need to bring around Higuruma. We're going to put him on here, Hiromi Higuruma. We're going to put him on here. Also, we're going to put culling game questions that we should be asking ourselves at this point because we are on episode 8. This was the rule of 8, y'all. The rule of 8 for this cour, and it did not disappoint. I was like, do I treat this like the rule of 8 because it's technically, 24 episodes, they're just splitting it into 2 cours. I'm like, do I call it the rule of 8? But it really, this was the rule of 8. And I'm like, yes. So I feel since we only have 9, 10, 11, so we have 4 episodes left of this cour, I feel like those 4 episodes are going to be Yuji versus Higuruma, whatever the hell Kinjaku is doing, whatever the hell Megumi is going to do, and then whatever quote-unquote bomb that Kinjaku is about to drop on all of this, it's gonna all come out before we end the cour, and then they're gonna leave us in suspense for a hot second until later this year when we get the rest of it. And I'm like, how freaking dare you? How dare you? I'm going to, before next week, look up and see if they've anticipated when the second part of the culling game is going to be. Because it does say part 1. I did see, like, when I went to get this episode and I was, like, loading it, it did say part 1. I'm like, So, as one could say. We need to start out this episode, though. So, some things about Japanese criminal justice system. I thought this was an interesting episode because I'm in the U.S., so the U.S. justice system is different than this. So, am I a lawyer or a criminal justice major? No. Am I basing a lot of what I'm going to be saying in this reaction off of my own personal knowledge based on things I've seen or encountered with the justice system? Well, yes. So, it's going to be a little bit different, right? And I feel like in the US, the justice system, there's so much complexity with it, and it very much depends on who you are, where you are, what you did, that it gets layered and layered and layered very quickly. Whereas in Japan, they're just like, nope, you committed a crime, you're guilty. And that's at least where we start. So Higuruma starts out in this very one-man show, on a stage. This should have been the sign, oh, poor boy's cracked, the moment that we saw this opening still, but we didn't know the backstory at the time. 99.9% of criminal cases in Japan end up being guilty. The fact that he was a defense attorney alone, I think, says something about his mental state and his choices before we even start this episode. I think you could start out with that because he's a defense attorney. So he's defending people against crimes. Now, this says two things about Higuruma right off the bat to me. One, it says that he has this belief. He has a belief that he can possibly make a difference against the impossible, which is very noble, and we appreciate that. And two, he is a glutton for punishment. Glutton for punishment. And possibly delusional. Possibly delusional as well, because I think, again, this is a difference I feel between him and Nanami. I think Nanami would have approached this scenario and been like, I'm not going to be an attorney. Because if I'm not a prosecutor, then I'm fighting a losing battle. And I think Nanami instead would be like, I'm going to instead be a counselor so I can prevent them from committing the crime in the first place. I think that's the route Nanami would have gone. What would Nanami have done? And I don't think it would have been be a defense attorney. I really don't. I think Higuruma, while on the outside it feels like he's choosing this very noble path, which in turn seems to compare to Yuji in a lot of ways, which we'll talk about in this episode. There's also a little bit of delulu, like, you really think you're going to cause a miracle every 5 minutes, sir? And a glutton for punishment, a little bit of masochism as well, because it's like, why would you willingly choose that if you're a lawyer? But that's what he did, and I keep catching a stray on this wig. All right, but I love this opening scene where he's in the bathtub, I feel like in the clothes in the bathtub, other than it makes me think of Tobias from Arrested Development, other than that, it also makes me think of the fact that he is just drowning in his sorrow, realizing the losing battle that he's fighting. So we go to the penitentiary where they're holding this guy, and we set up this murder, basically painting a portrait of it. So the guy in question, his argument was that he had a cat, and when he was arrested and taken into custody, a cop started speaking to me. Now, what we find out is that this man had a history of being wrongfully accused. So, knowing that he'd been wrongfully accused before and clearly got off because they must have found whoever was guilty. So he's jaded by that and fearful. And so you I definitely understand where this guy was coming from, even though it didn't seem likely. You kind of got his story. He's like, he was wrongfully convicted. He was afraid of talking to cops. I mean, how often has that scenario been painted where you grow up in an environment where a figure of authority is also something that's threatening your livelihood? You would be scared too. It's a common story in the US. So he was afraid of the cop, and there were not just one, there were 2 or 3 of them. They all surrounded me. And he's like, I thought if they take me in now, nobody's going to feed my cat. But then my place doesn't allow us to own them, so I'm going to get in trouble if I don't feed the cat, and it's going to be a big deal. He's like, I was the only one who knew about the cat. So they're in the Iwate Prefecture, March of 2016. So March of 2016 is when this issue originally took place. I don't know how fast the justice system works because isn't this story taking place in 2018, right? So March of 2016, 2 people, a young girl and her mother, were brutally murdered, were found fatally stabbed in their home. And then the officers found this man, and he had charges of felony murder and robbery. And the events leading to his arrest. I like that we have, again, Gege's reusing the two-sided mirrors here, showing again, I love the connection to 2 sides of justice. That there's 2 sides of a story, 2 sides of justice. You're innocent or you're guilty. It's framing this kind of mindset about the criminal system. I love it. and then saying he fled after they were questioning him, which of course would make him look suspicious. And then when they caught him, they found him with the blade with the blood on it, making him look even more suspicious. And then they arrested him. And I like they tried to feed the cat, and then the cat was hiding. The cat was like, hell no. The blood on the blade matched the victim's DNA. Yep. And so then they were questioning him. And he denied all culpability. And he insisted that he just picked it up. It wasn't mine. I do love her. She's great. She's like, that's a little bit hard to believe. This is me. This is me and JJK. We've met my equivalent. My equivalent is her. She's me. If I got to follow Higuruma around all day long and help him solve murder mysteries, I would be so thrilled. She's living the life. I honestly was suspecting she was going to die. I thought that she was going to be like, boop, dead. What a very nice, kind, seemingly non-jujutsu sorcerer female character that's following a guy that's now one of the biggest antagonists in the season. Oh, she did. But no, she's not. So I wonder if she got out of the colony before the Culling game begins and she didn't go back in. Or did she get stuck in the Culling games and end up getting killed? We don't know that yet. We don't know. Because I was thinking whenever we saw Higuruma with Yuji and he had clearly mentally cracked at that point, I thought, okay, well, she died and that threw him over the edge because she was like the one person supporting him the entire episode that was trying to like get to the root of his issues. So my theory is that she died and that's what pushed him over the edge into killing the other sorcerers. Now, do we know that for sure? No, but she also looks a lot like Nobara, and so I'm like, I feel like, again, something else for Yuji to connect with because his friend, her, and Yuji's friend, Nobara, look very similar. But she does ask a valid question. Doesn't that seem very suspicious? And he's like, well, he refused the questioning because he felt guilty. He was previously a victim of a wrongful questioning because of an acquaintance that was using drugs in the past. I like she's just sitting there spinning around in the chair the whole time. That's so funny. She's saying, you're saying that traumatized him. And she's like, even so, I picked it up, a bloody kitchen knife. Why? He claims he was going to return it to the police later. And she's like, later? He's like, I know. His claims are all hard to believe. But when you consider his backstory, he looks so good there. I felt like it was the Squidward moment in SpongeBob where he's like, oh no, he's hot. That's how I felt. And I don't know, he somehow makes crazy look even hotter. So damn, Higuruma. Dang, Hiromi. Come on now. So yeah, when you consider his background though, he talks about how the fact that he works as a live-in employee at a non-profit organization. Okay, so here's the crazy situation with this guy. So with his situation, the culprit was working for this, I'm going to put shady organization down because their processes look a little bit sketchy. So they're like a nonprofit, and he's like, yes, they work with the elderly who have no place to go, running a shelter and providing support for their independent living, and he was taking care of the elderly there. But they didn't pay him a wage. So he was working there with the elderly. I'm like, did Kinjaku set this place up? Was Kinjaku running an assisted living and tricking people to come in? Was this happening? And so they only supplied him with goods like groceries and lunches and pocket money. But they just still charged him 550,000 yen a month for rent. I'm also like, why would you stay there and work there? Like, but why? They gave you nothing but charged you money? That's shady. Like, why would you work for them? I would go somewhere else. Quite a few of the residents have prior records. The reason he was delayed in turning over the weapon he found was the rules say we can't call any cops or ambulances. That is shady. So you're working that to me, I'm like, why would you work for them? But here's the thing. It's like, why work for them? Because you're working for a shady organization that doesn't pay you enough. They're making you pay money to stay there. And then you're working with elderly people who could fall and get hurt, but you can't call the cops or an ambulance to help them. That's so weird. And so you would question, okay, why would somebody in such a shady situation do something like this? But the reality is there are lots of people who do stuff like this? And the answer is because they don't think there's another way. They don't think there's another solution for them. Why did he grab? And then there's also, why did he grab the bloody knife? Human curiosity. How many times do people touch something they're not supposed to touch? That too. Why do you run for the cops? Because he thought that he was going to get convicted again and he had trauma from the prior conviction that was false. All of the stuff he says, as crazy as it is to believe, I honestly genuinely believed him through this, that he was telling the truth. But the problem with the justice system is that that doesn't matter. What matters is like the evidence and all the things that Hiromi sees. He's like, oh, well, these all seem like they're alibis. They seem like things that could prove him innocent. But that's not how this court system works. And Hiromi knows this. But they'd bother the neighbors. It sounds like a shady organization. I love it's like Higuruma Law Office. So it's Higuruma. Higuruma. Hiromi. I'll just call him Hiromi. And what did he say there? It's extremely close to being outright illegal. We've already seen an increase in suspiciously managed NPOs, nonprofit organizations, since the earthquake relief funds started flowing into the region. So again, there's like another layer to all this. Gege was just like, hey, there's a corrupt aspect of the Japanese justice system. Can I talk about it for a hot second? Like talk about it in my shonen manga of all things? Can I just do that? I freaking love Gege for this. Gege's like, hey, here's a civil justice issue I think the country should know about. Kiddos, if you're reading this, pay attention. This is crazy, right? So I like the idea that there were all of these nonprofit organizations that had sprung up who are supposed to be doing good, but they are all very shady because of the amount of money that's come in for relief against disasters. Like Higuruma sees Higuruma, thank you. To myself for writing it correct. Sees the problem in the system. He sees the way that it's not correct. And he's like, it's not surprising the murder weapon was just lying around. There's a good possibility that he's innocent. And there's something about him that I feel that part of his character was this belief. Was that this belief against all odds that someone's innocence could be proven. Which, let's talk about the fact that Higuruma has now Yuji in a courtroom, and who does Yuji have inside of him? Sukuna. So, and then it's like, Yuji, here's the thing, I could see 100% Yuji being somebody that Higuruma would be like all for. Like the more we got to know his character, I'm like, you and Yuji would hit it off. If you hadn't gone cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, Yuji and you would be like besto friendos. Like Yuji's just getting best friends on every age range. We got Toto in his 20s. We've got you in his 30s. His parent Kinjaku's in his hundreds. It's all working out great. So the problem is Sukuna is not innocent at all. So what is Higuruma going to do with a character like Yuji who is simultaneously innocent and guilty? What do you do with that? And that's going to be fascinating. And I don't want Sukuna to come out. Now's not the time. Now's not the time. Nope. So there's a good possibility that he's innocent. So he's like, we'll just investigate the organization's activities and their tax filings and run background checks on all the residents. And we'll focus on getting the information out of OE. I love that he just like saunters around. This felt like a live action Law and Order episode. Okay, Shimizu is his friend. Shimizu is me. I am Shimizu. I want a cubicle right next to this hot man so that we can walk around together and I can watch his tall, dark, handsome self walk around. Oh, he even pushed up like when he pushed the little chair of hers and spun it around. Oh, no, I ship them. No, I ship him and her. That's so cute. I adore that. That's so sweet. I love it. Also, her style is amazing. Go queen. So, yeah, he's like, could you take care of his cat, too? She's like, really? So, yes, the Commission for Public Defense cases is low, despite how much work they take. The public assumes that he's guilty as well. Also, can we say it for the tall people? Like, people always make fun of me and say, like, the colloquialism in the Midwest is walking on cornfields or walking through cornfields, because I take very long, very fast strides, and people are like, slow down, you're walking cornrows. And so I appreciate Higuruma for representing the tall folks and how we just, like, saunter through, right? There's no suspended sentence in murder cases, and he could receive the death penalty. There's nothing to gain here. And he's like, why did you accept a case like this? And she's so great. He's like, it's fine every now and then. If we stuck to easy work, our skills would dull. And she's like, it's more than every now and then. She's so precious. I love her. I love her style. I love everything about her. And the fact, so he basically says that we need to hone our skills. That's going to come back and bite him. So I feel like that's kind of like a half-truth. Like, I feel that Higuruma says, oh, we're taking on this case just to hone our skills. The way he phrases that makes it sound like, which is going to explain why the guy looked at him in the second trial the way that he did. We're going to get to that. But the way that he says it here is like he's trying to pass it off as saying like, oh, well, we just need practice. And this will make us have better skills. And it's like, yes, but also this is someone's life in the balance. And I think that it's a half-truth, because I think Higuruma does care about this man, and he does want to help prove his innocence, but he very much knows the system. So he's kind of bracing himself. He's like, yeah, we're going to help him get a non-guilty, an innocent, verdict. But in the back of his mind, he's like, but we're probably going to get guilty. So, just to be safe, we'll just say that it's just for practice, right? But we all know that it's more than that. And she's like, you're saying your thoughts out loud. So this is really cute. I like the little tropical. So the Justice Keys, Blue Verdict Records. That's so fun. I love that. So at this cafe, they're like, Higuruma doesn't sound like he's changed at all. It's rough when an independent lawyer isn't in it for the money. So he's an independent lawyer who is just, because he had his own law firm. It was his own law firm. So he was just doing it to try to help others. I like that this woman's running this cafe. Are her and Shimizu, are they, maybe I shouldn't be shipping her with Higuruma. Maybe I should be shipping these two women together. It's not so bad I'm being told to run a cafe on the side like you. Aw. But when you say he hasn't changed, do you mean he's always been like this? And she's like, no. I don't know. These two women, they both look amazing, but I feel like they're both going to die. He used to be worse. Now, that there, we're going to say used to be worse. I like that this woman is kind of like, he's got some like darkness in him that he's had to deal with. Okay, so look at this. Look at the people walking around during this story, because I think that they were setting up the story with the people walking and what ended up happening. He was in charge of the case of a restless driving resulting in an injury. So the drunk driving one. So you see this couple walking with the baby, and they're like, yeah, the defendant was 19, and his co-workers coerced him into both drinking and driving. However, all those involved aligned their stories, and he wasn't able to prepare money for a settlement, nor were we able to get him a suspended sentence. Yep. And then there's the wreck. You can hear it. And it's, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, here's the thing. This guy here calls him a liar right after that. Said, you said they'd find me innocent. And Higuruma's like, and he spits at the glass. Now, in this case, the way that Higuruma looks at him, I'm like, did Higuruma actually think he was innocent? Or is it just like he said, this was honing our skills? And what was it really? Also, if that were the case, even if he was coerced into drunk driving, he still shouldn't have drove if he was drinking. We had a case like that near where I'm from, where two young men that were both classmates together, they went out, and the one guy, he had been drinking underage at a party, and the other guy had been drinking too, but he didn't drive. The friend did. And he crashed, and the driver lived, and the friend that was with him died. And they arrested him recently and put him behind bars for drunk driving and, for second-degree murder. And people were like, oh, well, they should go easy on him. He's a kid, and he didn't mean it. And I'm like, he still has to have accountability and responsibility for what happened, and the other person paid with their life. They paid their crime. They're dead. So their life was sacrificed as punishment. And this kid needs to, it's not fair, but it's like you can't get away with something like that. So I don't know. If he actually was drinking, even if he was coerced, I'm like, he killed somebody, and that's not cool. But yeah. You told him that you'd managed to get a suspended sentence, though. So the one woman who used to be with Higuruma before Shimizu, she used to be his, secretary, and now she has the cafe. She lived, the Nanami experience. She left to go start her own cafe, right? And she's kind of chiding him, being like, you said you'd get him a suspended sentence, not an innocent verdict. Have you learned your lesson now? Quit being a criminal defense lawyer for impossible cases. Trying to save the weak may be a noble endeavor, but there's a limit to what lawyers like us can do without understanding from the courts and the prosecutors. That's kind of again, why I think that Higuruma would get along with Yuji if they could, if Higuruma hadn't gone off the deep end and Yuji had met him a year or so ago, they could have hit it off great, because I feel like they both want to protect people and they both want to try to do the impossible. And it's not worth continuing when your clients resent you. And so that's the thing too, he's trying to protect these people, and then when it doesn't work, they end up rejecting him and hating him. And that's literally what Yuji is afraid of. He's afraid of them all hating him. And it's Higuruma is living Yuji's fears, which is crazy. They're at the end of the rope, both mentally and financially. I can't blame them for lashing out at me. And she's like, what about your mental state? Here's the thing. This is the issue. I love the kids swinging back and forth. Again, Gege took something that was so simple and such a little scene, but the swinging back and forth was like a pendulum. And I'm like, it's so good, like a metronome. So his whole thing is he wants to defend people because they are mentally and financially unable to. And his friend, Shimizu's friend, is like, yeah, that's cool and all, but what about your mental state? They're like, you can try to help people like that all day long, but eventually that's not going to work. Eventually, it's going to take a toll on you. And you could just see him. Yeah, that right there, at that moment, he looked like Serizawa. He looked like Serizawa from Mob Psycho, and Amai looked like freaking Teru from Mob Psycho. That was amazing. I miss Mob Psycho, so any chance to, get a reminder of it is great. So yeah, they got down on the same pathway, went down the same place. I love that she's trying to give him her umbrella. That's so sweet. My dude, take the damn umbrella from her while it's raining. And again, another sign, I'm going to go back to that real quick because it is raining. Another sign as we're looking through the chain link fence that something's not quite right with him is the fact that he's just walking through the rain. I'm like, I don't know if even before the Culling Games we should paint Higuruma as a clairvoyant picture of perfection and mental stability, Even there, he looks just so downtrodden and just under it. That's probably one of my favorite shots in the whole episode, aside from when Yuji and his match start. That's one of my favorite shots. I am kind of obsessed with that. Just the light shining directly on him as he researches. The fact that she's drank 4 of those little tropical juices and fell asleep there and has the coat on her. Everything about this shot, the way it's framed and everything, perfection. Love it. Could not ask for better. So yeah, and then they go back and they found the defendant innocent. Now, here's the thing. She's so excited. And I also, did they do some rotoscoping in this episode? Did they do rotoscoping? Because there was a lot of shots of him running his hand down his face and doing the whole thing with cleansing with the water, which we'll talk about later. I was it felt very real and the animation felt real. So I'm like, did they rotoscope this? Because it's kind of cool. I'm not going to lie. And he's like, we're not out of the water yet. They're going to appeal. And here's the thing. So it's like a game in a sense where Higuruma is treating this like a game where they won the first round, but he's like, we're probably not going to win the second. And I'm like, okay. So it says the Morika mother-child incident, questionable innocent verdict. It was bought. Former judge's comments on the crooked lawyer's statements. So Higuruma, who is trying to do good in this world and trying to get one up on the system, is being called crooked. Says the verdict was innocent. I guess even murderers go free if they can pay up. How much did he dump on this? The law is dead. Prosecutors are useless. It's so sad because, like, this is basically Twitter. But it's just like all these people saying things without knowing the context and just assuming stuff on their own. Not cool, Cotton. Not cool. But yeah. And then refusing to accept the current ruling, they've appealed, seeking at a revision. And honestly, if you're part of a system in Japan that rules nearly every case as guilty, that when you do get the innocent case and it's something like this, it makes sense why the public would kind of be like, what the fudge? And so then the guy on the train taking the picture of Higuruma, I mean, granted, amazing shot. Don't blame you. Would frame that and put it in my office. But that also is kind of creepy and also rude. You're not supposed to do that. Also, damn, he looks good. Damn! Why? Damn. Okay. So can't wait to get to you in the manga. So nothing stolen was found in his room. There was another person in the same NPO that went missing right after the crime. And the fact that you were caught on convenience store security camera feed during the time of the crime determined from the corpse played a major role too. So, I mean, they have all the evidence. It's right there. They're like, they have the evidence you weren't there. There's clearly somebody else that's missing right now that probably is the one that did it. All the stuff lines up. Like, you would think that this would get him off. It's like, well, good thing you don't cook for yourself, Oi-san. Like, Shimizu's trying to make it, to where it's okay. Don't worry. You're going to get off the hook. I also like throughout all of these different, it's something very subtle, but in these episodes, in these scenes where you see Higuruma's face, but you also see the convict's face overlapped over his, there's something really kind of interesting about that where it almost feels like he sees himself in them or he sees them in himself. That's kind of interesting. Like their convictions reflect on him as a person, which, and he's like, there's no need for counselor. We're not even in the clear. We still have the second trial. I do think that the guy, when he did hear this, that they do have the second trial, I don't know if I would have reacted so harshly because Higuruma does phrase it as, and she's like, I worked hard too. I love her. I love Shimizu. I am her. She is me. I love her. They're like, well, that's not what I meant. And then, yeah, his eyes are just so full of, like, you can see the light in his eyes. Thank you for believing in me. Here's the thing. He didn't believe in him. Not really. He knew the system was corrupt. He knew that there was a 99% chance he was going to get convicted. He literally was gambling to see if they could try to get him out of it. And it's not that he believed he was innocent. He was just trying to play the game to get him a conviction that was innocent. And that's why he looks at him that way when they go back to trial. The second trial, the appeal. Guilty, life sentence. While the defense lawyers have to work with limited budgets and manpower, I like this thing. Prosecutors can pour manpower and taxpayer money into digging up evidence. So I thought that was interesting because that is something that's different in the U.S. In the U.S., the prosecutor and defense, there's been TV shows on both the prosecution side and the defense side. So, I feel like in the U.S., it kind of is more of a free-for-all in the sense that I don't feel like one is... And again, I'm not a criminal justice major, somebody that's a poli-sci major, somebody that's a political science major in the U.S., you can sound off down below, correct me, I'm probably wrong. But how I feel about it is, unlike in Japan, where they're saying that all of the manpower and taxpayer money goes into the prosecutor that's working with the police, I feel like in the U.S., it is a little more balanced, where I feel like the defense attorneys have just as much access to the evidence as the prosecutors do. I feel like even sometimes, I feel like the defense maybe gets even more of an angle than the prosecution does sometimes. It depends on the case, but I've seen cases where I was like, damn, the defense has a pretty good run of things. So I think it just depends. But that he says that's fine. That's how the system works. However, the prosecutors didn't even submit any new evidence during the second trial. All they said was the judge recognized their absurd claim that there's no reason to suspect the missing person of the crime, and they overturned the verdict. But it's like that's all it took was for them to say that we just shouldn't blame someone we don't even know about yet. It's like they didn't even think about all the other aspects of it. The highest court is always the bottleneck for a third trial. Most final appeals are turned away at the door. It's challenging to even get a proper trial there. So basically, 2 is your limit. If you get past the 1, you'll have the appeal. Very rarely do you get a third trial. It's usually like convicted as guilty most of the time, very rarely an innocent. This trial was destined for a guilty verdict from the start. And you could just feel that Higuruma is frustrated at the system and how it is. But then when he looks up and sees the man's face and those eyes that are blaming him for being like, why didn't we do more? Why didn't you stand up? Why didn't you try to like question the system? And he's like, why are you looking at it that way? I love that. I love the overlapping. It's so good. Yeah. He's just like, you're going to do nothing? You're just going to accept this? Do you even believe me? Like all of that emotion rolled into that one look. I love it. What about your mental state, Higuruma? Well, his mental state is about to go bye-bye. So, yeah, I'm not trying to tout the ideal of saving the weak. It's just always gone against my nature to leave things alone when I feel like they're wrong. And so that's the thing. So Higuruma's whole thing, we're going to put over here, is that he cannot leave something wrong alone. He wants to try to step in and figure out what to do. And it's like, okay, all right. And what a profession to be in to do that. I've never managed to fix that habit. The goddess of justice blinds her sight to maintain fairness under the law. And people turn a blind eye to all kinds of things to protect themselves. But I don't want to brush away the hands clinging to me for help. Yep. So I want to keep my eyes open at least. Well, now here's the thing. You say that, but then Yuji's come asking for help and you've turned a blind eye to him. So his whole thing was that he wanted to keep his eyes open to help. And then in walks Yuji being like, okay, well, how about you help me now? But he's gone cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and lost it. And he's like, no. And then we go back to the courtroom where he's being faced with that. If there are any objections to today's trial, submit your final appeal in writing within 15 days, including today. That's the other thing. That is the one thing that sucks is it's like you have the opportunity to appeal, but you've got to go through this lengthy process and all this red tape. So is it really gonna matter? And then now she was in the room when his curse technique got activated, right? There's also the animation with his eyes was crazy this episode. There were so many ways he would like look over at Yugi and like at Yuji and then look back here and then look up there and do that. Like his eye movement was animated so well. And then he just starts taking the gavel and going to town. If there is not 1,000 Higuruma cosplayers this summer with gavels hitting them at random times on things, I will be sorely disappointed. I need this in my life. I need all these Higurumus hitting them gavels. Let's go. Justice, baby. Like, he just snapped. Yep, and then that big, giant curse coming out of him. Crazy, too! If we're going to talk about the connection to Nanami, Nanami's all about seeing curses over people's shoulders. There's one right there. Everyone come back. Also, I love the idea that the Shikigami has its eyes sewn shut, like the Lady Justice herself. That's so freaking cool. Yep. And he's like, we're having a retrial. Oh, it's so bitchin'! Yes, it looks like No Face from Spirited Away. Looks like No Face from Spirited Away. And what the fudge is this? So yes, Hiromi Higuruma. Okay. So then we have this part here. I don't know what to make of Reggie. Like, what the fudge, Reggie? What? I'm curious. We're going to get into this. So it turns out that Amai was telling the truth. Amai was, and Remy was not. Remy and Reggie. They're like the couple from Pulp Fiction in the, like, come on, bunny. Like, from the beginning of it. And so he's like, oh. And then, okay, these two, I'm sorry. These two, I hope Itadori is heading there too. And then he says, I hope that Megumi is headed there too. What? Reggie, you better have some damn good explaining to do if you're keeping Megumi away from his boyfriend and keeping Yuji away from Megumi. Gege, what we doing? So then we have this guy. So he has all of these receipts. What is he related to Mei? And then with all these coins saying, isn't she a little late? What's all these receipts for? When is that girl going to bring me my next sucker? Why is he covered in receipts when he walks out there? Who the fudge is Reggie? That question number one. Reggie is buff as hell over here. Who be Reggie? So question one. Reggie? Reggie's got receipts though. So what's the deal with Reggie and the receipts? I don't know. I wish I knew what his tattoo said. If anybody in the comments can tell me what his tattoo says, I don't consider that a spoiler because it's right in front of us. But I can't read that. So what's the deal with those letters? And why does he have 5 receipts with a coin over them? Is that part of a ritual? What the fudge? Okay, I thought this was fun where we saw, we got basically Amai. Amai is basically struggling from the syndrome of a certain character from Windbreaker that I'm watching on my channel right now. Same storyline. Except that the person that helps out is not a crazy psychopath, so that's fun. You should go watch Windbreaker. It's a good series. I like it. But yeah, so Amai's big thing is that he had the opportunity to help someone that was in danger and he chickened out. He didn't have the courage to face up against the bad guys, and so instead he was complicit in it and let the guy get beat up until Yuji came along. Which, the interesting thing is that the stuff with Yuji going on with Amai in this scene is exactly what's happening with Higuruma, and except instead of Amai, it's Japan and the justice system. It's literally the two same things. You have literally Higuruma coming in to be like, this system is corrupt and stupid. Why is no one doing anything about it? I'm going to change it if y'all ain't going to do it. Bum, 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 bum. And Yuji walks in going, why are you letting this kid get beat up for no reason? If you're not going to change it, then I'm going to come in and bum, 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 and solve the problem. And they're literally kind of very similar situations. And, I mean, Amai's cowardice is understandable. It's just not commendable, right? And he's like, why can't you understand? Are you an idiot? These guys aren't that smart or athletic, but they're brimming with pride. Yep. You just have to match their vibe and joke around so you don't hurt that pride. So his whole thing was, I'm not strong enough to stand my ground or stand up to these guys, so I'm just going to be complicit and hope that nothing bad happens to me. And the thing about it is, what's so kind of wrong about that, and we see that so much in our own society right now, where people see injustices happen to someone else, and they're like, oh, well, but it's not me. So as long as I just stand here and nod my head and go, I mean, I'm not going to stop you, then I'm fine. But that's not right. And what happens at some point if they turn on you? Nobody's gonna help you. So it's, ugh. But then Yuji shows up, and it was wonderful. It was great seeing middle school Yuji. It was great seeing him stand up to him and having this sense of justice right from the start. That was awesome. And then you saw Yuji, like, just beat up these guys, and he looks straight at him. It's interesting that Yuji's like, what about you? I love it. He's like, what about you? Are you going to do something about this? So there's a part of me that wonders, so we have Culling Game player, Amai, and we're wondering, like, in this moment, he was basically, Yuji's like, are you going to fight me? And he's like, nope. And here's the thing, Amai could stand no ground. Amai had no ground to stand upon. He was too cowardly to stop the bullies. He was too cowardly to stand his ground and fight Yuji. He just ran away from both instances. And I'm wondering, like, if he's a Culling Game player, what technique does he have? What technique does he have? Because he takes Yuji to where, he takes him to where we have, okay, Ikebukuro, and then, okay, before the pacing of this episode was also kind of frustrating at times, because, like, you're on a roll with Amai and Yuji, and then it cuts back to Fushiguro. I feel Fushiguro's frustration. He's like, hey, why aren't we going through Ikebukuro to reach Shinjuku? Why aren't we going through that? That area has a lot of supplies. That place seems like somewhere where I would find Yuji. What the heck's going on? She's like, oh, well, I have a base nearby. It's easier to go this way. I haven't gotten much rest since yesterday. So, and you know that Megumi is just like, I'm going to kick the crap out of you if you lead me astray. So, the theater is the base. The theater being where this man who's lost his mind from the justice system is hiding out is just crazy. I love it. And so again, Amai is like, look, assuming he hasn't moved, and he's like, wow, you were a big help. Thanks, Amai. That was real nice of you. Like here he's like, oh, thanks, buddy, old pal. But again, Amai is not completely innocent. He's a coward. He's a coward. And he's like, oh, hold on. And he's like, what? He's like, are you seriously going? Well, I'd rather unite with my friends, but we're in a hurry. And so he's like, well, I haven't met him myself, but he once beat Habasan to a pulp. So, hey, if anything, that does give me hope that even though Yuji is, like, in trial now with him, maybe Yuji can get out alive. That's, if Helicopter Man, I liked Yuji's shonen logic. He was like, oh, well, I beat up that guy, so I'm gonna be just fine. And I'm like, Yuji, that's not how this works. But okay. And then Amai's like, well, maybe so. And he's like, say it. Say it, man. You should stop doing this. So whatever Amai was going to say, he doesn't. And I'm like, Also, this part here with all the red tables looking like drops of blood, looking very Neon Genesis. Just saying. It's very creepy. This felt like very much Shibuya. And then he's like, I'm sorry, Itadori. Why are you saying sorry, Amai? Why are you saying sorry? And what a fake out, because the moment that Yuji opened the door and this guy showed up for a split second, I was like, Amai, did you lie? But why did Amai apologize about sending Yuji to Higuruma? Why did he apologize about that? What the fudge? So what is Amai hiding? What is he hiding? Why? Why are you lying? What are you lying about? Why are you running? So then this door opens up. Gege, what? Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm Reggie. What in the queer eye is this? What in the Project Runway is this, Reggie? What we doing? And he's covered in these receipts. She deceived you. Everything about this moment is Fushiguro's nightmare. Everything about this moment. 1, this woman has led him astray and lied to him. 2, he is nowhere near Yuji in the most uneventful place. 3, they're nowhere near to their goal. And 4, there is a man that would be naked except for being covered in receipts, making him look like a chicken. standing right in front of him. The KFC breakup is real, y'all. The KFC breakup is real. And that face, he's just like, son of a bitch, I told you, you whore! And she's like, what? She's like, what? Me? I mean, I'm not frightened at all of you. I've been on your dad's shoulder forever. Why would I be frightened? Just so you know, Reggie. And he's like, stop talking. And Fushigiro's just done. Just done. Now, this part's interesting, where he's like, oh, ho, ho. He's like, we're wasting time. So, Megumi's like, I'm done. This is useless. What are we even doing? Let's quit wasting time. Let's get down to brass tacks. And then we cut to the most cinematic drop of light shining like a beacon onto a stage with Higuruma in a tub of water with his suit on, saying who's there. And he's like, what are you doing? I mean, this man has killed at least 20 sorcerers. At least 40 have died. They said 60, which I'm like, but at least 20 sorcerers have died. Like, this man has murdered a lot of people at this point. And we're just fine, apparently. He's like, what are you doing over there? And he's like, well, I could ask you that. And so he's just like, have you ever taken a bath while in your clothes? Like red flag, wee-oo, wee-oo, wee-oo. Like the Patrick Star with the walkie-talkie going, wee-oo, wee-oo. Like that is going on as we see here Higuruma in this moment. Yeah. It feels better than I expected. I'm like, uh-oh. Not good, Cotton. Not good. It's like Iago in Aladdin where it's like, oh no, he's cracked. So then he has like this shot of him in the tub with all the kids creepily like in the water. He's like, back when I was in elementary school, I loved our class on swimming in clothes. He's like, so many things have stopped mattering lately. I was like, oh, that's not good. That's not boding well. Not boding well at all. I've been challenging myself to try things I assumed I shouldn't do. That's bad. That's very bad. No, how about we go back to being how you were, Higuruma? I want to be hopeful that Yuji can convince him that Yuji's idealism and his pure innocence will convince Higuruma to tap back into his original self. I would love for that to happen, but I don't feel that's happening anytime soon. I feel like he's gone crazy and it's too late. He's like, I've basically gone off the rails after hitting my mid-30s. This is why Nanami had to step away from the job. He didn't want to end up like this. He's like, I really want Higuruma and Nanami to have met because I think Nanami could have kept this man on the straight and narrow. And maybe, knowing that Yuji was Nanami's protege, maybe Yuji will spout some of Nanami's wisdom to try to reach this man. Perhaps. He's like, is that funny? He's like, well, it's kind of amusing. I like that Yuji's like, hey, I knew somebody just like you that was going through his 30s and having a midlife crisis. He's like, aren't you Higuruma? He's like, in the flesh. Like, they just seem like they have such good rapport. Like, they just seem, if this wasn't the Culling Games and they weren't both cray-cray, this would be great. But no. And he's like, hold on, wait. And he does the same thing Yuji does. He's like, wait. And Yuji's like, time out. They literally are so similar. He's like, I'm a lawyer. Like, him in the bathtub saying, I'm a lawyer with the spotlight on him. He's like, talking to me will incur a consultation fee of 5,000 yens every half hour. It's like he's drunk, right? He's like drunk on his power that he's gained from getting chosen. I mean, Kinjaku chose him for a reason. Very clearly, right? Like, he has all of the hallmarks of being a jujutsu sorcerer. He's crazy. Like, he has all the hallmarks. The crazier you are, that's why he's learned the damn domain expansion in 12 days. The crazier you are, the more likely you're able to develop that domain expansion. He's let go, so of course he could develop one. He's an ideal sorcerer. Son of a bitch. Yeah, I love the way this is framed. He's like, I'm kidding. I just wanted to try acting like a nasty lawyer for once. See, I feel like he's acting like a nasty lawyer now, but maybe Yuji can snap him out of it. Maybe. He's like, what's up with this guy? He's like, well, hey, since you have 100 points, that's what I was asking. He's like, He's like, since you have 100 points, you might want to help us out. He's not a past sorcerer who's been reincarnated. He's a modern sorcerer whose technique was activated. Yeah, we talked about this with Hashimo. Hashimo's the ancient sorcerer. He's just had a technique activated. And I love that he's like sitting there like pouring the water through his hands like a kid, and then he like wipes it over his face. Oh my god. Yeah. He's like, we can talk it out. There's room for negotiation. But here's your problem, Yuji. This is a man who's been dealing with a system where there is no negotiation. It's all one-sided. And now he's been dealing with case after case of everything being against him. So he's on a power high of having everything go his way. So he's not going to listen to you. Maybe after he sees Yuji trying, he's like, oh yeah, you pass. Now we get back to Reggie, who he's like, that's enough. I can tell now. I love that as we're getting introduced to Reggie, there's all these crossed wires. Like, all these communication lines are just a big old mess. I'm like, who the fudge are you? Why do you know these things? What's going on? He's like, that's quite the shikigami. You're strong, right? If you were weak, I would just kill you as another mark. But you're good, so we could work together. And Rumi's like, this wasn't part of the plan. I've never heard of this before. He's like, what are you getting at? How much do you know about this culling game? So it's a ritual, right? It plays the cursed energy of players inside the barrier to ferry people of Japan to the other side and change them into something inhuman. And I guess Megumi's like, I'm not going to talk about Tengen. And I'm like, yes, let's not talk about Tengen. Let's leave Tengen out of this. And he's like, oh, do you know Kinjaku? And Megumi's like, what? So, I don't know if Reggie is supposed to be a psychic. Like, is Reggie just a psychic? Like, what's going on? He's like, I knew there'd be one. A sorcerer connected to Kinjaku. So, did Reggie make a pact with Kinjaku years ago? The moment that we cut back, like, we keep going back between Megumi and Reggie and Higuruma and Yuji, and I was like, pick a side, Gege. Let us stay. And maybe in the manga it's different. I'll find out when I read the manga. But Higuruma just, like, doing this over and over again in the water, I was like, He's like, so to be frank, like, if I can, like, ask for your help, man, he's like, we want to stop the culling game. And that way his eyes look over. Like, that's so terrifying. And you would think that Higuruma would want to stop the culling game too, but no. He's like, so time out. He's like, hey, he's like, before you attack me like Hikari did, when I say stop it, I'm not meaning negating it. I just want to use your 100 points to add a rule towards that end. And he's like, no. This is probably going to be the thumbnail. I freaking love this shot. I refuse. And Yuji's like, is that another joke? And he's like, no. I sense a potential in the culling game. And so the complete book of the 6 codes. Sometimes the law is powerless. What are the 6 codes of Japan conduct? So the 6 codes, okay, refer to the 6 main legal codes that make up the body of law in Japan, Korea, and the Republic of China, Taiwan. Sometimes it's used to describe 6 major areas of law. So there's the Constitution, the Civil Code, the Code of Civil Procedure, the Penal Code, the Code of Criminal Procedure, and the Commercial Code. Okay. They were introduced. Okay. So that's what they are. Cool. Sometimes the law is powerless. But what about the rules of the culling game? Like, he's like, I've been working for a system that has been just completely against me this whole time, so why not try the culling games, with a whole different set of rules than what I'm used to? Nope, don't like this at all. If the power I've been granted is real, then those rules must be real too. Yeah, that's not good. Nope. So then Reggie is like, what you said about the player's cursed energy being used. He's like, that's probably a bluff. And Megumi's like, what do you mean a bluff? It's not a bluff, but more like a plan B or a plan C. Why is Reggie making sense? Why is this making sense for Reggie? So if we go back to the original point of all this, the point of all this was to bring enough energy to initiate the assimilation. that was the whole point. Is what I'm putting this in the most nutshell of nutshells. But that was it, to have enough energy to initiate the evolution and the assimilation. But Reggie's saying that that's actually like a backup plan. And he's like, look, reason of 1, the number of players. 2, the strength gap between players. So we have number, the gap, and then the final thing he says is the barrier rules. Which I'm curious what his receipts have to do with all of this. And why is Megumi being a sucker? He's like, if there were 1,000 people equally split between the 10 colonies, then that'd be 100 per colony. So, but among the players are sorcerers like Kashimo and Higuruma, who are much stronger than the rest. And those 2 alone have already culled 60 sorcerers. I guess maybe his technique allows him to see receipts, so he's allowed to see, like, what's going on around town, and he has access, thanks to Rule 9, to see, like, who the players are and how many people they've killed, so that's how he knows it, so he's just using what's already available to him. But he's like, okay, there's probably one like them in each colony, which is terrifying in itself, that there's potentially 10 sorcerers that are of that level. But, so, basically he's saying that there could only be, like, 10 really strong players in each colony, right? So, the weak are weeded out early on, and the culling game reaches a stalemate. He's like, I like that Megumi was like, yeah, I kind of thought about that. You know, Yuji ain't thought about that at all. So, if you were narrowing down to where there was only the strong left, which I guess could be true, I had assumed when they were going into the colonies that the goal was to stop the players, to create a rule to stop the killing and all the energy transference from happening. But it seems like that's not really the case that's going on. The colony has been too quiet, meaning that people are already dead. He's like, it already has, at least in Tokyo number 1. On top of that, there's the teleportation when people enter the colony. Yeah, he says it serves to spread them out, but its main goal is to encourage an early second awakening of modern sorcerers. So, when you get teleported into the colony, it's to act as a second awakening. So, if you weren't awakened the first time, maybe when you teleport in, it will do that for you. But he says here, there are some who die during the teleportation too. Yeah, they crash on the buildings. Yeah, if Yuji hadn't parkoured his way across the building, he'd be splatted as well. If he was trying to use players' cursed energy, then he would want the greatest number of sorcerers to fight for the longest time possible. That is not what's happening. No. So that's why everything is happening too fast. Ooh, Reggie, why are you making sense? Why are you making sense, Reggie? So then we jump back to Higuruma, who's like, what if people who broke the rules were punished by physics? And I love the red light that we get. What if they were actually punished without any need for indictments, prosecutions, arguments, or trials? So basically, Higuruma is like, what if I became justice? What if I became the god of justice? And I'm like, let's not be playing God. That's when things go off the rails. No, let's not do that. I love you. He's like, wouldn't that be wonderful? And Yuji's like, no. I love the big red light looking like a big eye. And in the background, there's that like little green light that's like, run away, Yuji. Get out of there while you still can. And he's like, I'll acknowledge there are issues with the current rules, but I want to watch over the system serving as a basis for this game. I won't do for it to end too soon. I appreciate you being enthralled with this, Higuruma, but there are people's lives at stake. But that's the look of somebody who's a little cray. Yep, I'd especially love to witness the stripping of a technique. That's like Hannibal Lecter shit right there, sir. Let's not do that. And rule number 8, yeah, no, let's not do that. Why would we want to see that? That sounds awful. And so Yuji's like, hey, actually, the Culling game is a ritual. I wonder if there's a significance to the 6 dots there. I don't know. There's also another one. So is that 7? 6 or 7? But if we take too long, every person in the nation will die. And he's like, that's a lie. The way he says it with such conviction, he's like, that's not true. Not everybody in the nation's gonna die. I'm like, so I love Higuruma's skepticism. That is a face of pure skepticism. He's like, the Culling game insists on its own permanence. Like, that's the face of a man who's like, he like is channeling Nick Cage in this for sure. Like, oh, it's supposed to stick around. And Yuji's like, I don't really get it either. So, okay, yeah. Like, Higuruma and Reggie both realize that something's up with the game. That look is so creepy. And then he moves his eyes over. That's just, nope. He's like, well, let me rephrase it. Yeah, creepy. He's like, let me use your 100 points then. Yuji's like, well, this talk is getting us nowhere, so might as well start the battle, right? What was that? Let's go back to that animation. Him raising up out of the water. Oh my God, Mappa, why do you have to animate it so good? He's like, have you ever killed someone who ticked you off? You know? And then the face of, like, the Shikigami rising up. I'm like, no, I've never killed somebody who's ticked me off because that's not cool. I also just recently on this channel watched a movie about a detective and a mystery, and you should watch it. It's called Decision to Leave. It's on my channel. It was a Patreon commission, but there's a line from it that has stuck to me, and this guy's a detective, and somebody is talking about, like, a criminal that's being wanted, and they were like, why did this person, like, keep killing people? And they're like, oh, well, murder is like cigarettes. The first one is hard. And it's like, so whoever he killed first, that was the hard one. And then after that, it was all over. Yeah, the gavel. He's like, it feels better than I expected. Yeah, dude, I don't think you need to be a murderer. No, that's what makes me so sad. Higuruma was just a man who was slightly delusional but fighting for something noble, and then now he's a killer. Like, that's so sad. Nope, and the green light against the red. Oh my God. And Yuji's like, well, no. Yuji's like, you're insane, sir. Killing is not fun. The way they animated this is wild. Higuruma has 100 points. He might have killed 20 sorcerers already. I can't leap in recklessly. And Yuji's like, I'll just go on defense, but be ready for any attack. As he slowly walks like a freaking cartoon character down there. And then knows domain expansion. Because why wouldn't he? Who taught him domain expansion? How did he know how to say the words? What came of this? Who taught him this? Yeah, what? And he says deadly sentencing. And then he just has the image of the guy's eye looking back at him, and he just keeps hitting there. Okay, I want to go back to, like, the stuff that was shown to us. Okay, so we see the 2 lights there. Deadly sentencing. And we see the guy's eye. I love that it's just like this wave. What was that one shot? Okay. Was it where he murdered somebody? Okay. I love that shot of the scales and the justice and it just freaking out and screaming and there are all the lights. Okay, why won't you let me go see it? It's probably gruesome. That's terrifying. That's scary. And its eyes are open even though they've been sewn shut. Creepy. No, thank you. Nope. I want to take it. Oh my God. Well. Nope. That he literally like busted their heads open with the gavel. Oh my God. Those were the 2 prosecutors or the judge. Oh my God. Okay. I stand corrected. What about Shimizu? What did she think of you murdering those men? My dude? That is so crazy. The, like, goddess of justice screaming. That is so wild. Like, it has its teeth show up. That's so crazy. I love it. Yeah, like, that's so, with the fangs coming out. Oh, fangs of justice indeed. And then, like, Yuji gets put up on the stand, as is he, and then there's a giant guillotine that gets raised above his head. That's crazy. As he's just sitting there, like, smacking the gavel over and over again. Oh, it's all a bunch of guillotines around him. I don't know. Because here's the thing. How is his domain expansion supposed to work? Because is it like, because his whole thing was he was mad because no matter what he did, the justice system would always waver against him. So is no matter what happens in this scenario, you're going to lose? Is that how this works? Because that's usually how domain expansions work. No matter what you do, you're going to lose in this case. Here's the thing. I worry about Sukuna coming out because if Sukuna realizes that this is not a good situation and that Yuji does stand a chance of getting hurt, Sukuna ain't going to stand there. He's going to be like, ah, nah, bitch. And he's going to come out of the woodwork. And I'm not ready for that. As he's just sitting there banging the gavel over and over again. Ugh. The rules idea of continuation is a cover for the real plan. And so he says, mark my words. When only the strong remain, Kinjaku is going to drop a bomb on the game. So we've got to where only the strong remains. So Kinjaku has a plan A that involves some kind of bomb on the game. Now, the thing that kind of worries me about all of this is, one, we have no clue about Hikari or Panda trying to find Angel. We have no clue about them and how their mission is going. We have no freaking clue about Yuta and how his mission is going. We have no clue about Maki or anybody else. Like, we've just got into Yuji and Megumi. That is it. We haven't even touched base with anybody else in this series and what they are doing. So this feels way too soon for Kinjaku to be going. Where is he going? Where is he at? The Culling game will fulfill its purpose. What? And then we see him walking in front of this council. Like, who are these people? I don't think these are the elders for Jujutsu Society. I doubt that. But, like, you're going... to be fair, the Culling game colonies do kind of look like bomb sites, the way they're all shrouded in black. Who is this guy? Because he's like, please have a seat. Okay, well, he said it in not... I mean, it was in Japanese, but there were subtitles. Oh, no! There was no language, so we don't know what language they were speaking. You better not have gone to another country, Kinjaku. No. No. Thanks for inviting me. No. Why? Why are you there? What is happening? Why are you anywhere else? What? So what Reggie is trying to say too is that this is all a big distraction. It's all a huge distraction. Reggie's like, while we're fighting each other to the death, the strongest of the strong, Kinjaku is somewhere else. Mei picked him up and brought him wherever country she's in. He's somewhere else doing some scheming behind the scenes. And while we're wasting our time fighting each other, he's planning how to destroy all of us. But I don't understand how that goes into the whole evolution thing. Is that not on the table anymore? What? I don't know if I believe Reggie all the way, but Reggie brings up some really good points. But it's kind of like the case with the murder. Like, all these things make sense, but is he innocent or guilty? You know, do we believe Reggie? Do we not believe Reggie? There's all those questionings. And then in the back of my head, there's this idea of, well, but what about Yuji and the fact that Kinjaku does not seem to want to hurt Yuji? Kinjaku seems to want to keep Yuji alive for Sukuna, if anything. So what do we do with that? What do we do with that? I don't know. All I do know is that if I don't see a bunch of cosplayers doing this over the summer, I'm going to be disappointed. I know wearing a suit is hot. I don't blame you for not doing it, but I need to see it. I need everybody to have rubber mallets because those gavels will be a lot. Have rubber gavels and just be doing this the whole time. I love Higuruma. He's crazy and has completely gone off the face of the earth, but I want Yuji to reach him, but I don't know if he's going to. Anyway, this episode was great. Rule of 8 has not let us down, but I'm not going to lie to y'all. I've been talking about this for about an hour and 15 minutes, and this makeup needs to come off. So I hope you enjoyed me as Tengen as Lady Tengen for this week, but we're going to see what we're going to do next week. I got some new wigs in, though. I did get some new wigs in, so I'm saving one of the wigs for when it is more appropriate, but we might have to play around with the other ones, so in the meantime... I hope you all enjoyed this reaction discussion. I am curious to know your thoughts down below. Please, no spoilers. Y'all know how I do. But in other words, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3. Bye-bye.